Hey, I'm Brian Stelter, and it's time for Reliable Sources. This is our weekly look at the story behind the story, of how the media really works and how the news gets made. This hour, an exclusive interview with PBS CEO Paula Kerger, plus a frank conversation with renowned tech writer Kara Swisher. But first, to this, President Trump's Fox fixation. Check this out. 5 of his 7 sit-down TV interviews since taking office have been with Fox News. Trump watches Fox. He tweets about Fox. He uses Fox graphics to advance his agenda. He hires Fox talking heads. He promotes Fox as fair while denigrating its rivals as fake. All of this amounts to a Fox News presidency. What I mean by that is a presidency shaped by Fox News in all sorts of ways, big and small. And we saw it in action this week. Let me show you how a comment on Fox created an international incident. Now, Andrew Napolitano, a former Superior Court judge in New Jersey, now a Fox legal analyst, said this on Fox's lunchtime talk show.
Fox News has spoken to intelligence community members who believe the surveillance did occur and that it was done by British intelligence.
So he said that his sources believe that the British helped Obama spy on Trump. Not that his sources have proof, but they believe it happened. Now, that was on Monday afternoon. On Monday night, Napolitano doubled down, this time on a Fox newscast.
Sources have told Fox that if then Mr. Donald Trump, the president-elect, was surveilled, it was done by a foreign intelligence entity.
Okay, so he said if it happened. If it happened, the British did it. But the next day, Napolitano dropped all the caveats. Watch.
3 intelligence sources have informed Fox News that President Obama went outside the chain of command. He used GCHQ. What the heck is GCHQ? That's the initials for the British spying agency.
Okay, so now Napolitano is saying his sources don't just believe it happened. His sources are saying it did happen. So now the weight of Fox News is behind this explosive claim. 2 days later, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer brought Napolitano's information to a press briefing and quoted it from the podium. Why? To defend the president's baseless charge of wiretapping. British officials were furious. They said this new charge was also bogus. And then there were urgent calls between Washington and London. Maybe some regret from Washington, maybe not. It was all disputed. But at Friday's press conference, when a German reporter asked about this, President Trump said, hey, we were just quoting Napolitano. Go call Fox. Well, the reporter didn't need to go call Fox because Fox did respond on its newscasts. Shepard Smith, Bret Baier, both disavowing Napolitano's claims, essentially saying he said it, we love him, but we don't have any confirmation of what he said on our network. Ultimately, this all comes back to that 2-week-old series of tweets from the president claiming that the former president wiretapped him. Let me bring in my all-star panel now to dissect all of this. Here in New York, Ken Kurson, editor-in-chief of the New York Observer, which up until recently was owned by Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Lydia Polgreen, the editor-in-chief of the Huffington Post. And David Folkenflik, media correspondent for NPR and the author of Murdoch's World, the last of the old media empires. David, there's a lot of unanswered questions now about this Fox story, this series of reports on Fox Monday and Tuesday, and then into Thursday and Friday. We don't know, for example, if the Fox News division vetted Napolitano's sources before he went to air with this.
And I think it's very striking. I love the breakdown that you just offered. But one of the things that you saw there was he said Fox News can report. Fox News has learned. No, he's saying Anthony Napolitano can report this. Fox News wants nothing to do with it. There seems to be no confirmation, no fleshing out, no offering of, for example, if a news organization had done this on its own reporting side, they'd come out and say, well, here's what we know. They'd give you more substantiation or they'd backtrack. What Fox had to do here was say, we don't know. We have one of our pundits. They didn't really want to vet it.
And by then, it's too late. The damage, if there had been damage, was already done, and the British were already infuriated by it.
I mean, a service was performed for Trump in that there was some sort of after-the-fact seeming substantiation, seeming validation offered on the network, perhaps most important to the president. But what you don't have here is something that's done in a reporting sense. What you have here is a closed loop of content that the administration would like to be out there. He usefully serves it. I don't think it's incidental that Napolitano is close to Roger Stone, who has a habit of floating things on behalf of the president as well.
So some some conspiratorial thinking here.
I don't think it has to be a conspiracy. I think you see people who are talking heads performing a role in some ways as though they're performing a journalistic function. Fox is host to a lot of that. The opinion and pundit tail wags the dog there. But in this case, it's redounding to the disservice of the president and certainly to the public.
Maybe this is about blurry lines, Lydia, between news and opinion. I like to think of Fox as two channels in one. It's a news channel with reporters and then a much more popular opinion channel with the Sean Hannitys of the world. Those have the higher ratings. Those are the shows that get more attention. In this case, the Napolitano stuff was shared on both news shows and opinion. But I wonder if the blurriness between the two creates confusion.
Well, I mean, Brian, you've talked a lot about media literacy, and I think that it's absolutely too much to expect that viewers are going to make a serious distinction between a news report and what a pundit has to say. And all of the cable news networks, MSNBC, CNN, and certainly Fox News, are hiring surrogates of each political side, and stuff gets mixed up willy-nilly. And I think some cable networks are very careful about this, that they, I don't think that you would see Jeffrey Lord say CNN reports when something that he personally knows. But the fact that this line has been blurred across the industry, I think has created the space and the opportunity for this type of misdirection to happen. And it's very dangerous. I mean, I think, people already are not making serious distinctions between what's punditry and what's news.
It's more than a Fox issue. Does Huffington Post have this problem?
Well, we try to be very clear about it, but again, we have contributors in our network, but we have to be very clear about the fact that people see things and they don't distinguish whether it's opinion or news. I've often said that at the New York Times there was this tradition of having ragged right on a news analysis piece rather than a justified right on a news piece, and we acted as though that was some kind of clear signal to the reader that you're reading analysis and not straight news.
We both used to work there, and we both know that doesn't work. That's not enough.
It doesn't work. And, even though the op-ed page of the New York Times is far removed from the news pages, people, if you read it in the New York Times, you read it in the New York Times. So this is a much larger media literacy issue.
Ken, I think you have a more conservative perspective than the Huffington Post, perhaps. Let me ask you about this broader point about a Fox News presidency. Do you think I'm being fair to say that Trump's White House is being shaped by Fox News?
I don't think that's fair. I think that there are people on Fox News who probably share the same opinions and values and worldview. But I think that it's been proven time and time again that the president watches this network as much as he watches any network. And all of the networks, as Lydia pointed out, have these blurry distinctions between pundits and reporters, and they're harder and harder to tell. A story that's just as relevant to this discussion is Donna Brazile coming out and finally, after 6 months or so, admitting that she had shared questions that she got via her work here at this network at the same time that she was working for the DNC.
David?
I think that we're really having two discussions at the same time. And one is about media literacy, and one is about the infusion of analysis and opinion and the blurring of lines. And the other is very much about Fox News. I think you've seen Fox News recalibrate itself. It was poised for a Hillary Clinton presidency. And it was, they were really willing to spend a lot of money on Megyn Kelly, somebody who Donald Trump heaped vitriol upon throughout the campaign,
right,
to keep her there as primary figure at 9 o'clock. What do they do instead? She walks and goes to NBC. She wants a different start, a different point in her career. They turn to Tucker Carlson, who's familiar to Fox viewers, but they quickly elevate him to 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock. He is all in pro-Trump. He actually asked some very good questions the other night, I thought. I thought he did a nice job in many ways, but nonetheless, largely a pro-Trump figure at 9 o'clock there. They have really doubled down. If you look at their opinion shows and at their most popular shows, it's consistently a pro-Trump line, trying to find ways to discredit not only criticism, but journalistic reports that are uncomfortable for the president and the White House, much like the White House itself.
You wrote this week about Rupert Murdoch, the man in charge, the patriarch of all of Fox, saying that he speaks regularly with President Trump. How often did you learn?
Well, he's told associates that he speaks multiple times a week, that he's been to the White House on more than one occasion, and that he's sort of overjoyed. He's embracing the sense that Trump consults him on a regular basis about what's going on. This is the kind of relationship he's enjoyed with prime ministers in his native Australia, in Britain, where he has such a strong presence. He's always wanted that here in the U.S., and one of the things about him is, along with his conservative ideology, he's a pragmatic entrepreneur and businessman, and that means he can at times toggle between the two major parties. In this country, finally, freely with Fox. He has such a foothold in the Republican base, such a strength among conservatives. He now has this entree into a White House that seems to feed off cable news and Fox in particular.
Is some of this, Ken, about proportionality? There's been 2 weeks of attention around Trump's tweets about wiretapping. A lot of attention, because nobody seems to have any evidence that what Trump was tweeting about was true. We've seen these intel leaders this weekend come out and say that. We're probably going to hear it from the FBI director tomorrow. Is there a proportionality issue, though? Do Trump voters or folks that are sympathetic to Trump feel the press is piling on by trying to point out that he doesn't have proof for what he tweeted?
Absolutely, and that's why I think he's still basically in campaign mode. There's this gigantic chasm between what the public actually cares about and what the people on shows like this care to report. I don't think you could possibly show a survey of American voters that says the people really want to get to the bottom of whether Trump was wiretapped by the Obama administration. But the press loves that story. They love the will he release his taxes story. The thing on Rachel Maddow the other night was just a joke.
Wait a second, though. You're actually saying that you don't think Americans want to know whether or not their president was previously wiretapped by the previous president at the height of the election season?
Oh, I think that'd be a
American
super
people
interesting story that people would read, but I don't think if you listed 50 top issues that people care about, that would enter the top 50. I know it wouldn't. My previous background, for which I took much abuse, including from Lydia's Huffington Post, is in politics. We poll people all the time on what you care about. It's going to be jobs, national security, affordability, even income inequality.
I think
like
absent
that.
Trump having made it
that
such an issue on his Twitter feed, I probably agree with you. But I got to say, he's made it front and center in part because there are other things he's having trouble with.
I think
That's
you
right.
could
His
find
popularity
10
is
people who
tanking.
care more about wiretaps than jobs and the economy.
But I
don't
mean,
think
he's
so.
tanking on those issues, right?
I think
I
there
mean,
actually are viewers who care a lot more about wiretaps because it's about the president's credibility. And it's about whether he's lying to the public or not.
That could be that people would watch the story. I know I would watch the story just like I watched Rachel Maddow the other night. I couldn't resist. But I think that the reason Trump is president is he's correctly identified this giant gap between what reporters want to talk about, what they tweet about, and what Americans care about.
Or another explanation might be that he's exploiting the fact that reporters are distracted by shiny things. I mean, if you look at the opinion polls, Trump's approval rate is tanking. He just released a budget that is literally a something for nobody budget. Like the GOP hates it, the public hates it. Healthcare, you're seeing thing after thing where Trump is in his actual policies that he's putting forward is not getting traction. And so, throwing up shiny objects like a wiretapping claim or something else is a way to take the press off
a
the
master
set.
showman at work, but we haven't seen the results of the budget or of healthcare. I think he's got a great shot of getting both of those through with some changes and some negotiating, and that's how he sold himself as a salesman. He's going to make some changes. I think he's going to have wins in those departments, actually.
Salesman. I always come back to that word, salesman, and that's what we're seeing. It's a big week ahead for the president. Let's keep this going. Everybody stick around, but we're going to get to the bottom of this Napolitano sourcing situation. We have a guest standing by who was one of Judge Napolitano's sources. We'll speak with him. You're going to want to see this.